Well, yeah, because the district, it was the district that noticed and put it in the paper? Or
I
was
think
it?
the district, unless they tell me differently, they may not have to do more than a Brown Act agendized notice to consider a petition. So, but they're saying they did outreach, but I think the legal requirement, and I haven't looked at this, but it might be quite low, unless Mr. GM wants to comment further.
We did the notice of this
But
hearing.
Mr. Hood certainly
Yeah,
did the
through the
mail.
Cortese-Knox Act, we did the
published
notice. We published the notice, and it's a paper notice, primarily because of the amount of residents. It'd be fairly expensive for us to notice everybody one-on-one, but I'm assuming that the district has done their public outreach, to this point, knowing that if it goes past this point today, that they will have to provide individual notice to each property owner. Is that correct?
We will provide
Or we will,
notice.
I'm sorry.
LAFCO will provide notice of the protest hearing.
Yes.
And it would be a mailed notice to each of the registered voters and property owners. We have a list of those in an Excel spreadsheet, so we can make labels. Jacqueline informs me that we can make labels from that spreadsheet, which I didn't know we could do, but we can do that. It's not an issue.
Yeah, and so I would assume that the district has been doing its PR, knowing that this process would take place, and in hopes that they're not going to have a 25% protest. Is that correct?
Right, 25 to 50% would send it to an election, and over 50 would terminate the annexation.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hood, I just want to really understand what you just said about who gets this notice in the future. It's registered voters and property owners?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So you could have perhaps a rental, and you would have the people who reside there plus the property owner?
That's correct.
Okay.
So the combined, it could be two protests, one by landowners and one by registered voters, because it's inhabited. It's over 12 registered voters, so it's termed inhabited. So there would be a protest hearing that it would not be mixed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't file, unless you own property and are registered to vote, you still need to file two protests.
Okay, I just want to be clear, because I think we had an issue about this a while back on another proposal. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I have a question of the general manager. Part of the presentation says that there's no mandatory connections, and so connection fees and annexation fees would be paid on a basis of individuals wanting to connect up.
Correct. The resolution or ordinance that we currently have in place does not, if the sewer line goes by your place, it is in front until it fails. So the planned action will be that it'll be collected in that pool and part of the overall project, and then that will go into the fees that were asked about or earlier about connection fees. So it'll be recouped at that time.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other commissioner questions, there's 2 requests to speak on the item.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, we have 2 requests to speak on this item. The first is Jeff Hodge, to be followed by Hillary Hauser.
Thank you. Hopefully I've answered quite a few of your questions. Here's a few moments after I'm done with this to have any of the other answered. Greatly appreciate Paul Hood's effort in getting this from January to this time frame. With my board and my staff worked diligently to get this before you, fearing that we were going to have the big El Nino, which we didn't. But now we're in place, and we've got a time frame to get some of the Horizon and the stadium folks in that have already been receiving calls about hooking them up. So I greatly appreciate the efforts on that part and my board over the last, seems like probably 2 decades working to get these areas into our boundaries so that we can provide them with the service that they need. With that, I just want to thank you guys for your time and effort on this, and Paul for that expedient moving it through with 5 months. That's very good. So we'll see where we go. So if there's any questions of me, I'm available. But thank you. Thank you.
Our next and final speaker is Hillary Hauser.
Hello, Chair Guyer, Commissioners. Hillary Hauser from Heal the Ocean. And we've been involved in this issue of septic systems in Santa Ynez area since 2001, because septic systems are in groundwater are part of Heal the Ocean mission, and we did all that work on the Rincon. And so thank you, Mr. Hood, for referring to the Santa Ynez Community Plan, because as I mentioned in my letter to you today, that same plan, page 118, and this is in the year 2009, says public sewerage represent the probable best long-term wastewater management approach for Janet Acres and West Santa Ynez. With the lamp, Heal the Oceans worked very hard to get this lamp in place, and basically the citizens of Santa Ynez are caught between a rock and a hard place. And I've gone over this with Larry Fay of EHS a number of times. Would this happen? Would this really happen? And that is a septic system failure today, right now, would require EHS under the lamp to require the homeowner to install an advanced treatment system at a cost about $40,000 and get into an annual monitoring program. So we are also, Heal the Ocean, working on getting monies to help the homeowners, and the Santa Ynez Community Service District was given $150,000 by EHS to do an engineering on this project so that we can figure out the cost and so that the homeowners can know exactly what they're voting for, and they do have a choice, as it's been explained. And we've already hired Dudek environmental engineering to find money, state money, to help this project to bring the cost down more. But I would just really urge the commission, please, to go forward with this annexation so that these decisions can be made, the cost can be found out, we can move ahead so that the homeowners have a choice. Thank you.
Okay, we'll close public comment, and I think Commissioner Sebes has a motion.
Be glad to make the motion. I move that the commission finds the proposal to be categorically exempt, Class 19 for CEQA, and that we approve the proposal to be known as the West Santa Ynez Area Annexation to the Santa Ynez Community Service District, subject to the following terms and conditions. One, that the territory being annexed be liable for any existing or authorized taxes, charges, fees, or assessments comparable to properties presently within the district. And two, the territory shall be liable for existing or future bonded indebtedness of the Santa Ynez Community Services District.
Mr. Aceves, would you be willing to add to your motion the approval of Resolution 1602?
Of course I would.
Thank you.
And I would second that.
Okay.
Just
And roll call
discussion.
vote?
Can I just say something for discussion?
Yes.
Before we vote, I just want to express my pleasure in seeing this move forward. And obviously, Mr. Hood, you've done a fine job in moving this forward expeditiously, so that's important. And as a director sitting here, that's always important to make sure that these applications don't linger. We've had emergency situations where sewer systems have failed in the past, and we've had to do whatever the formal term is, out of agency thing. So this is finally doing something that I know has been necessary. I think there's other areas. I mean, this isn't my district; it's Supervisor Farr's district. She knows much better than I do. But sitting here on LAFCO, as I said, we've seen these emergency situations, and not just in this area, but Los Olivos. There's other areas there that need help, and I hope at some point, we'll be able to move forward in that direction too. And certainly, I just want to thank Heal the Ocean for being a partner, working with the district, and obviously with the members of the community to get us to this point. So, thank you, everyone.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just say, I'm absolutely in support of the motion. I think this is exactly a textbook case of how the process is supposed to work with a district, having an approved sphere of influence first as far as, where they want to expand into, and then later on, when it's appropriate, going ahead and annexing it in. And as Commissioner Wolf said, the reason this is a patchwork is because we have had these emergency annexations. The septics have failed, and it becomes a serious health issue for the homeowner and the community. And so having those pipes in the street and ready to go and people able to hook up as soon as they're able to afford it, I think is a very good thing for many, many reasons. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr? Commissioner Morehouse?
Aye.
Commissioner Orac? Commissioner Orac?
Aye.
Commissioner Welt? Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Guyer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on to business item 1.
Chair Guyer and members of the Commission, business item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding the final budget for fiscal year 2016 through 2017.
Mr. Chairman, we'll wait for the PowerPoint to load. It's only a couple of pages, I think 3 pages. Yeah. Okay, seems like we have the PowerPoint loaded. And this is just general information on the LAFCO budget process. And your commission is required to adopt a proposed budget, which you did last month on April 7th, and a final budget by May 1st, proposed budget, so we beat that by a month, and a final budget by June 15th. The final budget is the same as the proposed budget. It has an increase of $24,000 approximately over the current year budget. And these are the various service categories: salaries and benefits, contracted staff support, services and supplies, other charges, and contingencies, and total revenues, which balances because we require that the cities, the county, and the special districts pay any costs that are not associated with revenues from application fees. It's recommended that the Commission receive public testimony and direct the staff to distribute the final budget to the county, cities, and special districts as required by the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act 56381, and notify the county auditor to proceed with allocating the costs to the county, cities, and special districts. I want to thank the auditor's office for helping me indicate in the budget, the final budget that you have in your agenda packet, what portion of that budget will be added to contingencies. It's $50,000. So that would increase reserves to $110,000 by the end of the fiscal year. So that's something that I want to thank the auditor's office for helping me designate in a clear fashion. And so that is indicated that your reserves will increase, and we talked about that at the proposed budget hearing last month. So again, I would request that you approve the budget as indicated on the screen, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
No questions? Well, I have a compliment. Great to see the utilities go down, especially the water cost. Okay, with that, entertain a motion to approve the budget. Okay, second. Okay.
Chair Guyer, members of the Commission, we had no requests to speak on this item.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr? Commissioner Morehouse?
Aye.
Commissioner Orac?
Aye.
Commissioner Welts? Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Chair
Aye.
Guyer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, business item 2.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to consider recommendations regarding updates of existing spheres of influence.
Mr. Chairman, I had sent out letters to to 17 special districts. I wanted to concentrate on first of all, the cemetery districts, which seemed like it would be fairly easy to reaffirm their spheres. The sanitary districts and the fire districts, water district that overlapped areas, and the sanitary districts in Goleta, Carpinteria, and Montecito. We received 5 letters indicating that districts would like to reaffirm their spheres of influence, municipal service reviews, Goleta Cemetery, Goleta Sanitary, Goleta Water District, Montecito Sanitary, and Summerlin Sanitary District. Goleta Sanitary District indicated that they wanted to update their municipal service review, and so attached to the staff report is a strikeout and red line to change the information in the MSR document. We have also heard back from Goleta West, and I went over comments from Goleta West that they wanted to include some language in the resolution that I'll be bringing back next month. We heard back from the Carpinteria Sanitary District that they are interested in expanding their sphere of influence, an item that will be revisited from the last sphere of influence update process in 2011-12. So we'll be bringing that back. And also I intend to send letters to the districts that have not responded, asking them if they don't respond that I would place an item on the agenda that would reaffirm their sphere of influence, and pending future action by their board of directors that they would like to see some changes. So I will probably send that letter out in the next day or two and bring it back to your next month's meeting. So I have attached 5 resolutions for approval to reaffirm the spheres of influence. And my recommendation is that you, first of all, receive any public testimony and then adopt the resolutions confirming the spheres of influence for the 5 districts that are indicated in the staff report. Be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any commissioner questions, comments? I don't think there's any speakers. Okay. Entertain a motion to approve. Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Seves?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr? Commissioner Morehouse?
Aye.
Commissioner Orek? Commissioner Welts? Commissioner Wolf? Chair Guyer.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, business item 3.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, business item number 3 is to consider options for dissolving the Santa Rita Hills Community Service District.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this came up at last month's meeting where we had an item on the agenda that talked about the termination of the Santa Rita Hills Bridge and Highway District, the reorganization that would have dissolved the Santa Rita Hills CSD. And your commission asked for some options that might be available to dissolve the district, the Santa Rita Hills CSD, and I came up with several that I've outlined in the staff report. The first one is special legislation to dissolve the district, and that would need to go through the state legislature, and a bill would need to be introduced, as you're well aware of that process. Second one is a reorganization to dissolve the district and form a successor agency, such as a county service area. This would be similar to the reorg that was proposed to form a bridge and highway district and dissolve the Santa Rita Hills CSD. And also the third option would be to request the Board of Supervisors to act as the directors of the CSD, either on a temporary or permanent basis. And I might mention that this is usually a transition procedure that the Board of Supervisors would act as the CSD Board of Directors until their residents. Usually it's a vacant piece of property that would be developed and a CSD would be formed. And second, the last one is to wait until the Santa Rita Hills CSD has enough voters within its boundaries to elect a board of directors, and this has not happened. They only have one board of directors out of 5 currently. And so that would be just kind of not similar to not doing anything, just waiting to see if they are new resident voters that could elect a board of directors that would serve to reactivate the district. So those are the options that I came up with. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioner Morehouse, did you have a question?
What would be the process with having the Board of Supervisors act as the Board of Directors? What powers would they have and what could they do?
Well, we had a discussion about this. I'm not sure. First of all, I think the Board of Supervisors would want or would need to be willing to do that. And then there is a process that we discussed previously that the board could take over the operations and functions of the CSD as long as it's an active district that's on the board but can't really do anything until we have a board of directors. And there would be revenues available to to the board if the board decided to become the board of directors. But it would only be on a temporary basis. And I'm not sure that the Board of Supervisors would be willing to do that, but I throw it out as an option.
With that, what these residents were trying to do, it seems like, is just build a road. Is that correct? And this area lies within the county of Santa Barbara. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it sounds like really the problem here is that the county probably didn't have the funds to build a road, and so they tried to get together to build a road for themselves. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So it seems to me that that might be the best option here, is to throw it back on the lap of the Board of Supervisors and see if they can't come up with the resolution to seeing whether or not a road can be built. And if not, I mean, obviously it'd go through a planning process, conversion of ag land into potential homes. Maybe a developer comes in and wants to develop. I don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities, but it seems like it needs to go somewhere and not just in limbo. And from what you've outlined here, it seems to me that that might be the best option.
Commissioner Farr?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to respond to Commissioner Morehouse, I know when we talked about this issue before that there was a question about where was the public road, where did it end, what was the road alignment. And, having driven out there some years ago, there is a public road, Sweeney Road, that goes to a certain point. As it gets closer to the Santa Rita Hills development, the usage of it has diverted, I understand, from actually where I think the county has the rest of the public roadway mapped, because it wasn't as convenient. So it kind of goes now down through the middle of a farm field and is subject to flooding and watering and all of that. But it still ends at a certain point. It's my understanding that it ends about the Kargasaki property, and then there are roads in there that I believe are not public roads. I think they're private roads. And normally, if somebody was going to come in and develop this area, then they would have to have an agreement with the county whether the county was going to build the roads and consider them public roads, and they have to be, built to a certain standard and the county maintains them, or whether the developer would build the roads and create a homeowners association or Mello-Roos district, which we have, up in the Vandenberg Village area and in Orcutt, and maintain the roads, because as you know, the county has difficulty maintaining the roads that we have, and so Public Works has not been anxious to take on more public road right-of-way to be responsible for. So I don't know. I think I'm certainly open to discussion about whether, you contact the CEO's office, whether she wants to bring this to the board for the board to discuss. But it's my understanding there's been litigation on this a long time ago, and that the county looks at the resolution of that litigation as the solution to the problem. And that, I think, has been the county's stance on it. I think the homeowners have not necessarily agreed with that, because I think it's a more expensive way to try to do it. But it's obviously, you know, a discussion between neighboring property owners. So, you know, if it comes to the board, I'm sure all this old history will come out, and, you know, I think there are still people both in public works and maybe even in fire that, you know, could speak to this issue and the history of it. But my sense is that every time this gets brought up, it kind of comes back to the same place where we are now, which is it's really an issue for the homeowners to try to resolve. They tried to resolve it with the district, and that didn't work.
Okay. Commissioner Morales?
Well, I think you probably just answered my what I was going to state, and that is the path that they've been told to go down has failed. And so we can do one of two things here at this commission: is we can just sit here and ignore it, or we can move it along and get it back to where it's supposed to be so that there's some type of resolution to this. And again, I'll reiterate, it sounds like it needs to go back to the county, and we need to get things figured out.
Okay. Commissioner Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the issues is that, as I see it, there is this pot of money that's still out there, and the question is, what happens to that, or how does it get returned to the homeowners, and ensuring that all bills are paid? Do we know that all of the obligations have been met?
They have not been met because there's no board to create a budget to pay the outstanding obligations, and they're mostly staff costs. And we had a printout of what the obligations were, which I didn't include with the staff report. But as I recall, there's about $200,000 in the county treasury, and there's obligations that are about half of that, mainly for legal fees and staff costs.
So I think that we need to figure out a resolution, obviously, and I know Theo Filati is here, our auditor controller, and if Theo, can you come forward? The two options that I see are moving it into a successor agency, or bringing it, or letting the Board of Supervisors take control, with the notion that this money is going to pay off the debt and then go back to whoever paid into it. Because I don't believe, so tell me from your perspective, what would be the best path to take to achieve that goal?
Chair Geyer and Commissioner Wolf, I don't have a best path. Our hands are tied at this point where there is no board to authorize any expenditures. Either one of those paths we could handle in the county's accounting system for whichever path is taken. I'd really truly have to defer to legal, as to what the better path would be, what liabilities might be accepted, as in taking on the role of the board of the district. So I don't have an answer for you as far as that's concerned, other than when there is someone in charge of the money that can legally appropriate it, we can handle the distribution of that money in whatever decision is made.
Okay, so a successor agency could be that.
Certainly.
Just confirming that option. Okay. So, Mr. Dillon, have you evaluated these options?
We looked pretty closely at the dissolution proceeding, and I think outlined that for you when you approved the resolution of dissolution, where the Board of Supervisors would be essentially the successor board for purposes of winding up the district and paying all the bills. And as I mentioned back then, if you don't recall, the money does not go back to the people who were assessed the fees. Rather, the money is then used by the county after it's all the bills are settled and any indebtedness is taken care of. Then the Board of Supervisors is encouraged under the statute to spend the money for projects in that particular area, but that's as far as it goes. So it could go into the county general fund, or it could go towards projects that, out of a sense of maybe, due diligence, you might think, well, let's spend this money in the Santa Rita Hills area, but that's not required under the statute. So that's the dissolution proceeding.
Okay, so you've,
And
that's
that
always
bog-
been your,
That bogged down, of course, because it was subject to a protest, and so, we're stymied there. That cannot be, that was terminated, basically, by the protest proceeding. Right, that was our most recent experience. Dissolution, you took that road, we adopted the resolution, we adopted the study, and you approved a resolution of dissolution, and then the voters protested it and terminated the proceeding because they got more than 50% of the, it was a landowner protest, so they got more than 50% of the assessed, owners who own more than 50% of the assessed value of the land in the area. They got quite a bit more than that, 50% figure. They got 66%.
so are you saying this is not an option?
Well, not unless the landowners buy into it right now, and I think some of them are here, but
Okay,
if they don't
so
buy
I guess,
into it,
so
it's
these
not.
options that have been laid out are not really
A
options?
successor agency is an option. You have an application before you, which is, I'm not sure the status of that, but we had problems because they had issues signing the defense and indemnification agreement. But so we actually just recently, because the 180 days ran on that per the policy of the commission, that was deemed abandoned. So, but a successor agency, LAFCO has the authority to assign all the assets and monies of the prior agency to the successor agency, and they inherit the debt and the assets, and then they proceed in the shoes of the prior agency, and then they can pay all the debts and do anything else that, in this case, it was a streets and highway district was proposed. They could then move forward with a road program under that district. But that's been stymied because of another issue, which is you have some landowners here who didn't want to put their own personal, I guess, I don't want to speak for them, but they didn't want to put their own personal assets on the line for a governmental agency, and so they couldn't buy insurance for a risk like that. They spent some time exploring that option, so that bogged down too.
So we have you have 4 options, 2 basically are not really options.
Unless they find a way to bring that back, that's not an option.
Okay,
They could revive the CSD somehow. I'm not sure where they stand on that, but they would have to get voters to come back into that district and start putting people on their board. That's an option. And if they elect board members, then they can start functioning and paying bills.
have we talked to any of our legislators about this?
No, that's kind of an extraordinary step for staff to take without
I feel like we're
commission.
in an extraordinary situation.
Yeah. Well, we would want direction from the commission before we
Right.
would explore that.
Okay.
That's what I think we would say.
Okay. Commissioner Seves?
Mr. Dillon, obviously, the district needs someone to operate it. And if we were to say, okay, county, you'll be the successor, we want you to be the successor agency to carry on the business of the district, and it goes to the board, and the board says, no, then we're back to square one again?
If there was a successful dissolution, there's 2 options to get to the Board of Supervisors. One is a dissolution, which of course got terminated by the protest proceeding. But if that somehow succeeded, by law, the county is the successor agency for purposes of winding up the affairs. So they don't have an option there. But I think when you invoke the CSD statute, and this is something I was talking to Mr. Hood at lunch, I haven't had a chance to research this. I think when you just want the supervisors to step in and function as the district board, because there isn't a functioning board, I'm not sure, I believe that's optional, according to Mr. Hood's experience. So there, it's up to the county to decide, do they want to take that step? So we'd have to investigate that a little bit further. But I think it's going to be optional, is what's Mr. Hood's experience.
Can the successor agency be an interim assignment? In other words, to pay the bills and get the house in order?
Yeah, I believe it can. And I think that you're looking at 2 options here. One is to establish a successor agency to wind up the affairs of an existing district that doesn't have a board of directors, or a successor agency to go in and perform the duties of the district, collect the assessments, and actually do some road construction. I think what you're referring to is the former, that you would want to go in and wind up the affairs of the district because there's some issues related to access across a parcel that's not within the district, I think the issue of fire protection was a big issue in improving the roads to accommodate fire equipment and personnel and trucks. So I think that's the main reason that the roads are going to be improved. I'm not sure the successor agency would want to do that. At the very least, though, they could wind up the affairs of the district, pay off the obligations, and spend the remaining funds as deemed necessary.
Commissioner Morehouse?
Thank you. I believe the time for us to do forward this to our legislature is past. It's too late this year to get any bills done. So we would be looking at next year, going through the process, passing in June or July of next year, becoming effective January of the next year. So, you know, if we try to pass this on to, and that's if they actually pass something that would help us, which, you know, is questionable. So we'd be rolling the dice for a year and a half if we try to go through special legislation. I certainly would like to see, at least hear back from the county board of supervisors, and, you know, put this on a future agenda. Let's hear back from the county supervisors what their plan is for this, because obviously this is property that falls within the county jurisdiction, and let's see if we can't come with some kind of resolution. And you know, the money that's just sitting there is not doing anybody good. So let's do something with it, and you know, maybe try to do something good for that district up, or that district that doesn't exist up there. Let's do something for them.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. For me, I look at it, I realize where we're at with this, but for me, it's important to get the bills paid. And I would favor at least requesting the Board of Supervisors to take over as a temporary board, to pay the bills, get things settled up. There's two issues. One is paying the bills, get the districts settled up. And the other one is the road situation. And I don't see that that's, it's not our situation, and it's not the Board of Supervisors. I don't think they want to jump back into that. But I would like to see the Board of Supervisors, at least a request to them to temporarily take it over. It's a lot less to just temporarily take over the board than it is to form a new CSA up there. So anyway, that's my comment. We do have two public speakers.
Chair Guyer, members of the commission, we actually have three requests to speak on this item. Okay. And the first is Marty New, to be followed by Hank Blanco.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you for your concern. I agree, it's extraordinary times, and it's gone far too long. I'm a property owner in the Santa Rita Hills Community Service District, and first I'd like to thank Mr. Dillon and Mr. Hood for their continued clarity and support through this whole process. I had some things I wanted to say, and I think what's most important is that protest hearing was about supporting a reorganization towards bridge and highways, which we continue to support. And 66% or 2/3 of the owners of the value of the parcels in that area voted to continue with the CSD with the reorganization to be the future goal. At this point, we have not been inactive. We have been working behind the scenes steadfastly. We've continued to reach out to those who have opposed the CSD. We continue to reach out to them to be part of the board. We have 4 people who are voting in the district. We're 1 away from having a board. So that's with great effort. So we continue, like I said, to reach across for those who oppose the CSD to become part of the solution and voice their concerns and their disagreements in a civil manner in which we can all move forward. So that has been going on. It's been going on personally since I purchased the property. I'm most curious to hear about the possibility of the supervisors stepping in and reigniting, being our board, and helping with the transition to the bridge and highway. I think that's a really suitable solution, and if that could happen, that would move this forward. The concerns about handing it over to the county is the county is not obligated to use those monies for our district. I've called recently just to have the county continue to pave the road that they are responsible for, which is gone. I mean, that's actually a more serious driving issue than the dirt roads because those potholes are so severe. We have been put on their agenda, which I appreciate. So I will continue to be an activist to support this district. It does exist. It's a very important AVA, American viticulture area, that cannot be underestimated. It potentially can bring in great revenue and tourism into this area. It happens to be where I want to have a home, to live, and to produce great wine. And there's no reason that it shouldn't happen. I think we all know, without stating, what are some of the obstacles, but they're just temporary obstacles. If we have the board move us towards the bridge and highway, then we have the option for the road which has the MOA. And then we can start our internal roads, which is crucial to development of that area. And the fire roads are a serious concern. We're in drought year, it's dry up there. And again, I have to appreciate all your support for moving this forward. It's worthy. This is a serious AVA. It rivals the Burgundy region in France. Our area was on the cover of the New York Times Magazine. So this isn't a small issue. This is an area you should be proud of for Santa Barbara County. So thank you for helping us resolve it constructively and positively.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Hank Blanco, to be followed by Patrick Morris, who's our final speaker.
Mr. Chair and members of the board and other friends that are very familiar faces here, probably tired of seeing me around, but my name is Hank Blanco. I'm owner of Parcel 38, which has a partially completed, 90+% completed property, building on it that has had a separate easement into the area. That's how that unique parcel and only that parcel could build a residence in there, and that was the prior owner, and the Cargasacci family made an agreement, and that's how that came about through an unfortunate court case. We wound up with the property, and so I'm here as a volunteer to all of the other neighbors that have not been able to be so fortunate as to build a home yet for over 30 years, have been paying taxes without any opportunity for them to enjoy their land more than just grazing or to build a home in there. So this is an issue that I met with a former planning commissioner who authored and helped write the underlying document, which I believe we've discussed informally with some of you. I would be happy to make copies of it. It's called the Memorandum of Agreement. It was a result of some litigation in the past that obligated all of the landowners, the 38 parcel owners, to, in paragraph 18, when this document was recorded, to create an assessment district. It also says that, I believe it in paragraph 7 and paragraph 9. I don't have it with me, so please don't hold me to that. But I know paragraph 18 by heart. It says you have to create an assessment district to build the access road between the terminus of Sweeney Road and the subdivision that was created over 30 years ago, that all landowners that are approximately 39 40-acre parcels have been paying taxes into without any ability for them to do anything about building a home there. There is no further subdivision or of those parcels in there. That's also stipulated and agreed to in that agreement there. So you're not going to have, 4 10-acre parcels be made out of. So there's no overburdening is one of the key words in that whole document as well. Myself, Dr. Angelo Salvucci, Marty, who you are also recognizing as a familiar face, have been more than knee-deep in this. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but just basically point out that we all kicked in about $15,000 out of our pocket because we feel strongly that the answer is imminent, that we can resolve this issue. And I apologize about my time here. There's a lot, this has a bigger issue, but we basically put in based upon Best and Krieger's recommendation, great law firm up in San Francisco that's very familiar with these things, an application for Bridge and Highway District as a successor agency. Stop?
Okay. If you can wrap it up.
We were ready to go with that, and we met with the county risk manager. The county risk manager we had an insurance policy as required for $1 million in order for the application to be deemed complete, but the risk manager wanted individual personal guarantees, which is a little bit overreaching. And that's why the Bridge and Highway District that could solve this problem could take care of this. I would hope the Board of Supervisors will sit down with some of those that have been really working on this and learn a little bit more about it, because I think the answers are here. We just have to put the pieces together and work it out. Peter Cargasacci approached me recently about renegotiating an easement. When we met, it was very friendly, and that would solve part of the other problem.
Thank you.
You bet. Any questions?
Our final speaker is Patrick Morris.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. The solution is ready and available, and in past executive officers' reports to this Commission, one dated December 4th, 2014, and one going back as far as September 5th, 2013, the Commission's executive officer acknowledged that there is a private road agreement for access, and we have to talk about two different things. The CSD was not about access. In fact, by its resolution forming it, it wasn't allowed to get involved in the access road. Its job was to build, improve, repair, maintain internal roads. So if we're going to restore the CSD, that has to be its objective. It blew through about $500,000 in taxpayer money from 2009 to 2014 when it basically imploded on its own, and it never once built a road, improved a road, repaired a road, or maintained any more than 100 feet of one road in the entire 20-some miles of roads that are inside the district. So the Community Services District itself was very dysfunctional from its very first days. In fact, it blew through the $500,000 hiring law firms like Best and Krieger to try to condemn the access road. I believe that the issue of the Board of Supervisors is a moot issue, taking over as the board. This has already been visited by Mr. Dillon previously, and it was raised. The Enabling Act for the Community Services Districts only provides that the Board of Supervisors may act as the board until such time as an original Board of Directors is voted into place. There is absolutely no provision anywhere in any law for the Board of Supervisors to act as a temporary board when the board that was elected fails and nobody runs for the position. I know of no law. I've researched the issue. I challenge Mr. Dillon to come up with a law to that effect. So I think that that's sort of a non-starter. I do believe that the money should be spent to pay those legitimate bills, which do not include the heavy legal fee bills that were done to create the Bridge and Highway District. Because, in fact, the CSD held closed session meetings under the guise of acquiring land. And in those closed session meetings, it concocted to hire legal counsel to form a Bridge and Highway District because this commission stymied its efforts to condemn the access road over my client's land. Of the $500,000 they blew through, my clients were taxed 20% of that because we have 20% of the land inside the Community Services District. So from the perspective of my clients, who are both, they would ask that this commission let this sit or form a services area for the sole purpose of dispersing the money and bringing an end to this particular exercise. And we appreciate your efforts in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chair, I'm curious about Mr. Morris' comment about forming another avenue to approach the expenditure of these dollars, pay our legal obligation. Besides the Board of Supervisors, how do we do that? Is there an answer there?
Oh, it's a good question. There would have to be a successor agency established And we've gone through the dissolution process. That didn't work because we had a protest hearing where we had 66 of the percent of the property owners that protested the dissolution. So we would have had a successor agency in the Board of Supervisors at that point. So unless the board decides it wants to, do this by a CSA or by some action of their Board of Supervisors, we're kind of stuck. We don't have anything unless we pursue legislation that would dissolve the district. And, we, acknowledge that that would take some time because it's too late to introduce bills. So that's a good question, and that's why it's on your agenda, because there was, needs for some answers and some alternatives. But there's really no right one to move ahead with.
Commissioner Morehouse?
Chair?
This is Judy Ishkanian speaking. I just haven't really heard a clear explanation as to why the legislature could not dissolve the district and take command of the bill paying and then clear the way for a proper application for the next district so it can get started on its projects. Why? Is it just a matter of time? Because sitting in limbo could take a year and a half too. Just like to have that explored a little bit.
Yeah, we certainly could do that, but it's late in this process to introduce a new bill to dissolve a district. We don't have an author for the bill, and we don't have clear language, although it would be relatively easy to draft language, but I think it's probably too late to do that in the current legislative session, unless there's a gut and amend bill that we see occasionally, more frequently than we would like to see, but there is no clear way to do it legislatively for about a year and a half.
Commissioner Morehouse?
This body, this LAFCO, I don't see us being a body that can do anything about this at this point. So, unless, I've seen two solutions at work. One is legislation, which puts it in limbo for at least a year and a half. If legislation could get passed, that there's no guarantee just because you introduce legislation that's going to pass. And second, let's get it back to a body that can do some action. And I'm going to reiterate what I said before. I'd like to see this get on the County Board of Supervisors agenda, and I'd like to hear from them what their solution to this problem that started at the county level. I'd like to see what their remedy is. But this body, LAFCO, our hands are tied. There's nothing more we can really do. Am I correct?
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Orick?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Down here in Nowheresville. I think where I'd like to go with this is to support Jeff's issue about kicking the ball over to the rightful owners, the supervisors. They in turn can study if they're, and take appropriate action, I think, to pay the bills. Whatever that entails, and I think they've got enough legal beagles like Bill in there that could come back with the solution to do that, because we're kicking that around the room all day long. We've got Mr. Morris there giving us his opinion. I think that the county just has to cut to the chase, I guess, in that. The other thing that I liked was Jeff's suggestion was that the county can study the issue of spending that money in that area, maybe on the roads, to get this ball rolling in a proper direction. I understand that it's going to take some time and energy to research fire. The CEO's got to have her input, and all the other organizations. So this isn't going to, even if the county takes it on, isn't going to be an easy thing to do. But they have the resources to research it and come back and tell us if they can and want to go forward. At this point, the ball should stop in their court, and they have to make a determination of what they can do and their staff about spending that money appropriately to pay the bills, and then anything over and above that that might help the
the legal owners of that property that has been in existence since 48 or 52, I think. So that's my suggestion, or I'll make a motion to that effect if someone would support it.
Commissioner Wolf?
Well, I just would like to go back to staff because I'm feeling like this is almost a circular discussion. I thought that you had said, and maybe I heard you wrong, that the Board of Supervisors can't do it because there's been a protest hearing. Now, just clearly just tell me, can the Board of Supervisors take this over?
Well, the protest hearing was a LAFCO hearing that we do as a conducting authority for protests. And your commission initiated the dissolution by resolution after a special study that was prepared, approved the dissolution, held the protest hearing, which was terminated by the majority of the landowners. So that, unless the commission wants to do it again with the same result, most probable, there's no reason to do that.
I just want to know, can LAFCO send this to the Board of Supervisors?
LAFCO could request the board take action on it. And
take action or take over?
That's a good question.
We'd like to look into that a little further. Yeah. There's two options to get to the Board of Supervisors, one of which is basically run into a dead end, and that was the dissolution proceeding.
Right.
So that's at a dead end unless, the second option, and this one I haven't had a chance to research, but is to simply ask the Board of Supervisors, if the county has this authority, to step in and be the district board of directors and direct district operations for as long as it takes until a board is elected. And then that might give the Board of Supervisors as a district board the option to at least pay the outstanding bills that this district owes. Okay. And we can look into that.
Thank you.
I suggest you give us a chance to look into that one more time and report back to you on your next commission meeting, if that's okay, before you send it to the board, but it's up to you.
Okay, Commissioner Severs and then Commissioner Farr and Commissioner Morris.
I was going to support Commissioner Orick's comments, but now I'm liking what you just said. I think it should go back for a further look, bring it back next month. In the meantime, have a conversation with the county CEO and see what their appetite would be. But ultimately, we need parents to come in and take over and pay the bills. So I know this has been going on for a long time, but I think until we find out what the county can do as an interim successor or district, whatever option they feel appropriate, but we have bills that need to be paid. So having heard Mr. Dillon, I would certainly make a motion to that effect, that it come back next month with further study.
Okay. Commissioner Farr?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would support that, Commissioner Seves. I just want the rest of the commission to understand that generally how things get on the Board of Supervisors agenda is they either need to be brought by one of the 5 supervisors or a department head, like the auditor controller who's involved in this case, or the CEO. So, depending on what comes out of our discussion next month, I would just ask that the commission be very specific, as specific as possible in outlining what the issues are and how they hope the Board of Supervisors to be able to resolve it. And then that would go in the form of a letter to the CEO, and then the CEO, I guess, would decide where it went from there. This area is in the 4th District and Supervisor Adams' district, so if a supervisor were to bring it, he would probably be the one that people should be contacting.
Commissioner Moore.
Yeah, I actually support moving forward with this now and making the request to the Board of Supervisors now, and that request be in the form directed to all of the above that can put it on the agenda, which would be CEO, auditor, and to the actual Board of Supervisors. I don't want to spend any more LAFCO legal money on this issue anymore. We have expended a lot of time and effort with our executive director and with our legal staff on this issue, which within our power is a dead issue. We have no power to do anything anymore with this issue except make recommendations. And so my recommendation is that that we request that this be placed on the Board of Supervisors agenda for discussion and potential action and recommendations on how to proceed with the Santa Rita Hills non-functioning special district. And if that can be in some form of a motion, that would be my motion.
I have a comment. The more I hear this, I mean, I'd like to see the bills get paid, and that's pretty much, but I think LAFCO's done our job. And we held a hearing, and it was denied. And I think at this point, I'm beginning to feel that if the right thing to do is to request the Board of Supervisors, but I don't know that LAFCO's the one that should do that. We've done our job. It was denied. And if the people that are in Santa Rita Hills want the Board of Supervisors to take it over, then they should be the one to request it.
Mr. Chair, I respect and appreciate Commissioner Morehouse's comment about let's move this thing forward, and I certainly would be the first one or the second one to support that. But I'm hearing something different in terms of protocol and how do we get it to the Board of Supervisors. So with respect to that, I need to defer to staff for the path forward. How do we get this back to the Board of Supervisors?
And I think with that, is it LAFCO's job to request that?
You don't have to request it. You could take either option.
Could I reiterate? I think the motion that I made was to have staff approach the county and find a way to move this forward with them taking it over. Because the risk is we ask them to take it over and they say no, and we're right back where we are again. So if we give the county staff, the CEO, time to look at the issues, they know the issues as well as we do. And ultimately, it's, in my opinion, their responsibility to find a resolution to this. So I think we need to partner with them. And so that's why I'm asking to come back next month with additional information so that we can make the informed decision and move it forward. So, yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Okay.
So just for the clarification for us down here, the motion is to have staff come back in a month with a report on how this would be referred to the Board of Supervisors and what the board can do if they receive it. Is that fair?
That's right, with the understanding that you'll be having communications with the CEO's office to find out the proper manner to bring it back to them.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Morehouse?
Well, I'll just say I'm not going to support it because I want to move it forward now. And I did put a motion out there to move this forward now and make that request that it get on the Board of Supervisors. Again, if we're just saying, oh, let's see what they say and come back and now we're going to be talking about it again, there's nothing for us to do. We're done. There's nothing for this body. There's nothing that this body can do anymore except request an appropriate body to take action. And that's what my motion was about, was asking the appropriate body to take action.
I call for a vote.
Okay. A roll call vote.
Commissioner Seves?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr? Commissioner Morehouse? No. Commissioner Orek?
Aye.
Commissioner Welch? Aye. Commissioner Wolf? Aye. Chair Guyer?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay. We'll move on to business item 4.
Chair Guyer, members of the Commission, business item number 4 is to consider recommendations regarding a report on the 2016 CalLAFCO Annual Conference in Santa Barbara.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, we have had at this point several planning committee meetings on the program. We had one on April 27th, and there was a call for suggestions for sessions, and they were ranked by the planning committee, and they are a little different than I included in the staff report because the planning committee met following the issuance of the staff report. So the top 3 general sessions were the California Water Status Report, state, regional, and local status report, ag preservation, where are we at, or where are we, and where are we going? State overrides seem to have a lot of support. Why the trend? Should LAFCOs embrace or resist? Examples of that were AB3, Sigma, SB 239, SB 88, SB 13, 18. I volunteered for that group. Top 6 breakout sessions, cutting edge trends in LAFCO, GIS, public policy, disadvantaged unincorporated communities, and future challenges, growth and development. A look at key demographic and governmental changes post Cortese Knox Hertzberg, LAFCO's responsible agency role in CEQA and what it means to be a responsible agency, AB8 property tax exchanges and LAFCOs. We went through a recent example of a property tax exchange with the city of San Luis Obispo, just because we had to, not that there was really a lot of issues or money that was exchanged. DSAL, recycled water, waste alternatives session, interagency coordination, and DUCS, disadvantaged unincorporated communities, and LAFCO's role in providing services. As the host LAFCO, we are working on a mobile workshop, and some members of the planning committee, our 2 commissioners on the planning committee, have come up with some suggestions. There's a couple of events that we would like to take a look at, but I'd also like to ask that the commission appoint 3 commissioners to serve on the host committee. I think we need to share the wealth and experience and come up with some commissioners that could meet and decide on some of the issues that we're kind of telling the planning committee that we're working on. So I'd like to see that and recommend that you do that. We've come up with some pretty good suggestions. The desal plant, Goleta sanitary water treatment plant upgrade, Lake Cachuma, Bradbury Dam, flower facility in Carpinteria, wineries, chefs, and Thursday night banquet. And we're also looking at local sponsors. Pamela Miller was asking that we try and have some local sponsorships from Santa Barbara County that we could propose. And Jacqueline is ready to accept any kind of suggestions and send out sponsorship information. Jacqueline and Mike are on the planning committee as well. And they will just need, the sponsorship team would just need the names, addresses, phone numbers, emails, and Jacqueline will accept that. So with that, I'd recommend that your commission appoint 3 commissioners to serve on the host committee and provide any additional information to staff. And we'll continue to work with the program planning committee on different suggestions for breakout and general sessions.
Commissioner Barr?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hood, I had a few questions. First, on the sessions, I know that the state override talks about Sigma, but it seems to me there's going to be a lot more close scrutiny of various water and wastewater districts that are separate from each other, because with Sigma, with a lot of money coming into water reclamation and wastewater treatment, recycled water, it seems like there could be an increasing number of situations where you have separate water and wastewater districts that are going to need to be merged, and whether that's a voluntary merger or whether we get into, the ability that, you're going to have some forced mergers because there's going to be economies of scale when you're looking at, wastewater treatment and upgrading facilities, and then that's recycled water that goes into the water portfolio. So that seemed like, something that might be interesting, and maybe it's going to be covered through, kind of the Sigma issue, or maybe it's the desal recycled water alternatives session. But a lot of times the special districts, at least that we have in this county, are water and wastewater, and so that's not the issue. But sometimes they're separate, and so I just wondered if the Sigma issue and the fact that we're going to have a lot more money coming forward to fund wastewater reclamation is going to, make individual special districts have to look at that. The other thing I wanted to ask about was with the events. So the mobile workshop I get, the Thursday evening banquet, I'm assuming that's at the hotel, and that's the regular banquet?
Right.
And then the Wednesday evening event, was that the one where they used to do the wine tasting?
The wine contest, yeah.
The wine
Beer and
contest?
wine.
So, so we're to come up with some kind of a Wednesday evening event that is at also at the hotel?
Yes, that was the suggestion, it'd be at the hotel, and Jeff, Commissioner Morehouse may have a comment on that. We've discussed a couple of options. I'm not sure where we are with that right now, but Jeff can speak to that.
Okay, and then before we go, you know, I really think, since we're talking so much about water in some of the proposed workshops, that really having a tour of the Santa Barbara desal plant, I think is a really good opportunity if we can do that. And another one that I like is, you talk about the flower facilities in Carpinteria, but they're also growing vegetables there, and I saw, you know, they do that butter lettuce and tomatoes and everything's all hydroponic. You know, we have some big greenhouses in Santa Maria that are doing it. It's yeah, well, and there could be legislation about that too.
Let's tour that one too.
But you know, when you see those greenhouses that are growing not just massive amounts of flowers, but the vegetables in no soil, you really see the future of agriculture, or part of it. So I think that you know, if we're thinking about going down to Carp, to the greenhouses, that flowers and vegetables would be really interesting. And I'm willing to put my name out there as part of the host committee if anybody's interested in that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Severs?
Two questions. What is the responsibility of the host committee? First question.
Well, I think the special events, we've already talked about some, but I would like to have, you know, commissioners weigh in on that, if you will. You know, we're, as staff in the planning committee, you know, Jeff and Roger and myself and Jacqueline and Mike are coming up with some things, and we're, you know, I think we're pretty close. We have proposed a dry run, actually, to see, you know, we have a limited amount of time. We have about 3.5 hours for the mobile workshop. So we need to fit that into the traffic issues. You know, how far can we go? I don't think we can go to Santa Maria and back, you know, in the limited amount of time that we had. And then, you know, a theme for the Wednesday night reception, which used to be the beer and wine competition. And also, you know, we need a theme based on our, you know, the theme that we adopted for the conference, that we can kind of work around the banquet and come up with some special events. You know, we did something at the workshop a month or so ago that was kind of interesting. But do we want to have a speaker? Do we want to have, you know, what do we want to do? You know, the special banquet, is that Cal LAFCO's responsibility, or should we weigh in as the host LAFCO as well? So I'd like to have a, you know, host committee kind of talk about those issues.
Okay. Well, I would, if he's willing, I think as chair of the commission, I think Chair Geyer should be on that committee also. Just say yes.
Well,
volunteers. You volunteer?
What's that? Huh?
Yeah. So you volunteered?
If
Commissioner Severs?
through the chair.
If you volunteer,
I think
I'll
that,
volunteer.
you know,
My
Commissioner Morehouse has done quite a bit of work on this as well, so I think
I guess that my question was, is this separate from the planning? You had a planning committee and now you want a host committee. Is it the same thing?
no.
I thought it was the same thing, so I'm not sure where we're going with this.
Here's the ranking of sessions, and this is what the planning committee is doing. As far as the, you know, the general sessions and the breakout sessions. So that's what we've come up with as far as a ranking, the top 3, top 6. And then we have a responsibility as the host committee, in addition to sitting on the planning committee, to come up with these special events.
I understand that, Mr. Hood, but is the planning committee also the host committee, or are you having two separate groups?
No, we have, the planning committee is made up of about 20
So
individuals.
from our commission, you're asking commissioners to volunteer to be on the host committee. So is that also our planning committee from this commission, or are you saying a separate group?
Well, it's up to you. We, de facto have 2 members on the planning committee from your commission. They volunteered and they're doing an excellent job, but they're not appointments by the commission. So if you want to appoint the same people, if they're willing to do it, and one additional, that would be fine. But I think that it needs to be an official host committee as well.
I'll weigh in here a little bit. Yeah, I thought they were one and the same, and that we just needed an additional person, but we can go whatever way everybody wants. Because there are certain responsibilities that the host committee is responsible for, and we've already been working on some of those issues. And one of them is the Wednesday night, helping organize the Wednesday night event, which the current idea is we're trying to bring in all of the Chamber of Commerce's throughout the entire county to come in and actually be de facto hosts of that event, and bring in some of their top, not necessarily hotels, but businesses, wineries, breweries, whatever it is, to be participants in there. The holdup we have right now with that, and we're trying to get clarification, is from the hotel. It has to do with serving beverages and also serving food. Could we bring in an outside restaurant to promote their food? Well, apparently not. So we're working on that with Pam Miller to try to get some resolution and how much it's going to cost us, and hopefully that will be resolved in the next week or so.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Moore, Commissioner Morehouse, if I could just ask you a question. Does the Wednesday evening event need to be at the hotel?
I think it's preferable that it's at the hotel.
So we couldn't just do a walking tour of the Funk Zone and the food and wine and beer tasting that's down there?
No, so that's a possibility. If the unfortunate thing is it is a CalLAFCO event, and so we can offer suggestions, but it comes to the planning committee, which is about 20 people, to give it an up or down whether or not that would work. But yeah, I think that would probably resolve the fact that we don't have to stay at the hotel. But that's right now that's the issue. We're trying to resolve the issue with the hotel on what we can do there, and that's something we can throw out at the next meeting.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking, obviously, something that's at the hotel is easier in some ways, but obviously constraining in others. And, I'm just thinking about people that are coming to Santa Barbara, and they're in kind of these heavy-duty programs during the day, and, trying to have an opportunity for them to get out into the city more in the surrounding area without it being too complicated for transportation. And I thought of the Funk Zone because it's geographically very close to where the hotel is. Has a certain reputation. It's not. I don't know the Funk Zone, but I'm just telling you
maybe
that
you can lead the
I'm
tour.
just telling you that my understanding of the Funk Zone is that you've got a lot of wine and beer tasting and restaurants all in close proximity to each other. So, I mean, if we wanted to design kind of our own our own walking tour, and it begins and ends at the hotel or something like that. I don't know. That was just something that came to mind.
No, it's a good idea. Part of what we're trying to do also at the Wednesday night event is not just promote Santa Barbara or the city of Santa Barbara. The object is to promote Santa Barbara County, and it's already to a point where we have to exclude North County from the mobile tour because logistically it doesn't work, because of the bus and the traffic, and getting to tour a facility up in North County just logistically won't work. So the Wednesday night thing would be an opportunity to bring in all the communities of Santa Barbara County to the event to help promote the entire county. That was a thought, but that's also, the touring the Funk Zone is, I think, a great option too. I'd actually be for that.
Well, I mean,
over the logistics of getting this other thing going.
Well,
But let me go, I had,
Well, I just wanted to say that I think that, you know, at the other CalAFCO conferences I've gone to, the wine tasting event, beer and wine tasting, is always so popular, and it does allow that regionalism, you know, to come in throughout the state, or even like in our case, throughout the county, certainly brings in, you know, North and Central County. But, I mean, if this hotel has certain rules against that, that other hotels that we've been at, you know, haven't had, then that's obviously, you know, a major stumbling block, because I think that kind of the pairing food and wine, and then you look for other, you know, food establishments that would come in and, you know, and do all that, I think would be really exciting. But if the hotel's going to put the kibosh on it, then it's a problem.
Mr. Chair?
well, I still, I was only on my first thing when we started this discussion here.
Mr. Chair, I understand that the mural room in the courthouse is available for rent. Is it possible they can serve wine tasting in that area and food and those sorts of things in there? That would be a countywide kind of a draw.
Okay, Commissioner Morehouse.
Okay, so to get to the second point that I was talking to that was asked of me, the other was the issue, let me finish off what you had just said, Commissioner Farr. We have had the same issue with other hotels as far as serving the wine and the food. The same issues that exist here with the hotel in Santa Barbara are the same issues that they have faced with other hotels. And what it comes down to is a cost. Every time you uncork a bottle or you uncork you know, a beverage, there's a cost that the hotel incurs. Even though you saw certain counties uncorking certain bottles, every time they did that, there was a cost to CalAFCO to do that. So that's some of the behind the scenes stuff that we're learning through this process. So we're trying to get around that. We're trying to find the right way to pay for that, and hopefully, and the hotel is working probably better than other hotels in the past throughout the state of California. So that's something to be said for our hotel. The other thing you talked about was the desal recycled water alternative session. And I actually am, I guess I'm called the RTL, Responsible Team Leader, for that session. So I'm going to be reaching out to our local and also our state agencies to bring in speakers for that session. And on the point of our local special districts, you do bring up a very important issue that we have been working at CASA, California Association of Sanitation Agencies. We've been working on legislation for the past several years, which would enable somehow wastewater treatment facilities to actually sell the water, so that you know, there's got to be a way to pay for the facility. But when the two agencies aren't the same, we can't compete against water agencies. And you get it, it's a very complicated issue. But I think part of the reason why we wanted to do a tour here in Santa Barbara and actually talk about this subject, because Santa Barbara actually has some good examples of the separate agencies working together to you know, sell that treated water to the water agencies. Goleta is a great example. They formed a partnership. They didn't have to merge. They formed a partnership, and the water treatment facilities working fine there. There's a current proposal going through right now. Hopefully we get Prop 1 funding for it with Carpinteria Sanitary District and the Carpinteria Valley Water District, where they don't have to form as one district, because I don't think everybody wants them to. No one wants the boundaries of the wastewater district to be included, the entire ag community in Carpinteria, so that's an issue. So we've got good partnerships that are going between different special districts, and I think that that's one of the things we want to show, you know, going forward, dealing with the water issues that, you know, the drought that we're dealing with. So anyways, that's all I have on.
Seves?
Just a couple of things. If the hotel doesn't allow us to do it, there are other venues that we can use. Walking distance, you have the Carrillo Arts Center, you have Chase Palm Park. Both are run by the city of Santa Barbara, which you can have events there if you rent it. The other opportunity is to go out to Earl Orange Showgrounds. It's a logistics thing, and maybe take a bus out there, where if we're going to talk about ag, what better place to do it but one of our ag districts? So there are other options out there other than doing it at the hotel. So the question before the board was to appoint 3 people to the host committee, I think, which we're really supposed to be talking about. So I would move that the current planners, I think it's Welton, Morehouse, and Commissioner Farr serve on the committee, and we'll find another job for the chair to do during the event.
I'll second that. All right. Call the roll call vote?
Commissioner Seves?
Aye.
Commissioner Farr? Commissioner Morehouse? Commissioner Orac? Commissioner Orac? Commissioner
Does it work?
Welt? Commissioner Wolf?
Aye.
Chair Guyer?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Move on to the information items.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, informational item number 1 is a receive and file the Cal LAFCO Legislative Committee meeting update on April 22nd, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I didn't have a lot of comments on this. There's a couple of bills that are of interest. One is SB 1318 by Senator Walk. She's from the Bay Area, having to do with drinking water and the requirements for disincorporated, disadvantaged, unincorporated communities, and requiring that LAFCO take this into consideration in spheres of influence and annexations. It's a little bit similar to a bill that was signed by Governor Brown. It was AB 88, or SB 88 rather, that I will talk about in a few minutes in my executive officer's comment period. But then there's also a bill on JPAs that I've discussed with you in previous meetings that deals with advising LAFCO anytime a JPA, Joint Powers Agreement, is entered into, so that LAFCO can include this in municipal service reviews, because it's a way of kind of circumventing the LAFCO process. Joint Powers Agreements can be formed between 2 public agencies, and LAFCO many times will not know anything about those. So I just bring that up as an FYI, both of those bills, for your information. And I'll talk a little bit at my executive officer comment period about the SB 88 that was chaptered last year, and it requires State Water Resources Control Board to look at public drinking systems. And I had a meeting that I'll talk to you about in a few minutes on that. That's all I had. It's just mainly an information item, just to bring you up to speed on a couple of bills that Cal LAFCO is looking at, and to provide you with the agenda for the last Cal LAFCO Ledge Committee meeting.
Okay, and information item number 2?
Chair Guyer, members of the commission, informational item number 2 is a receive and file a report on the current Santa Barbara LAFCO applications.
Mr. Chairman, there are a couple of current applications. One is the Museum of Natural History reorganization that we couldn't get on this month's agenda because the property tax exchange was not approved by the city until after the 21-day notice period. One issue is that our next meeting is in Santa Maria, so I'm not sure if we want to put this off until the following meeting in July, because there has been a lot of information and public comment on this proposed reorganization. So I would propose to put it off until July, which will probably not be real popular with the applicant. But we've had several meetings in a row in Santa Barbara, and so we'll be in Santa Maria next month and bring this back at the July meeting. The other is a very interesting proposal by the Santa Ynez Community Services District to include the Los Olivos community within the sphere of influence of the Santa Ynez Community Services District. And I have been having, and legal counsel have discussed a separate issue with that, the steering committee in Los Olivos about forming their own community services district rather than including the area within a sphere of influence of a neighboring CSD that happens to be 4 or 5 miles distant from the Los Olivos community. And this was an application that was adopted at the same time the reorganization, the annexation that we had on our agenda today. So those are the two applications that are in the office. And we did receive one this week to form the Guayama Basin Water District, and that was filed on Monday with 70% of the landowners signing the application to meet the SGMA Sustainable Groundwater Management Act requirements. So they are looking at a July hearing, wanting us to get it on for July so that they can do a special election. And that was just filed, so I'm not sure if that's possible because we need to do our due diligence, check the signatures, and make sure the maps are correct and that kind of thing. But we'll do the best we can to get it on for your July commission meeting.
Commissioner Farr?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment on the proposed change to the sphere of influence that the Santa CSD has brought. The Environmental Health Services has some money left in a fund that was used previously to do a study of wastewater options for the community of Los Olivos. It was kind of a broad brush study, and now with the interest of the CSD, the interest of the Los Olivos community, a lot of discussion, they've decided to go forward and use that money to kind of do the next step of that study, kind of a focused feasibility study that really will narrow down the options for wastewater disposal in the community, and also will have a financial component to it, so kind of a financial feasibility part of it. And so I think, it would be important for us to wait until that study is completed, because everybody wants to kind of jump to the governance, but I think that the correct path for the governance should probably be guided by what the actual physical options are and what the costs would be to the various options.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, we have one public speaker for the Natural Museum.
Chair Guyer and members of the commission, we have one request to speak on this item, and that is Roseanne Crawford.
Good afternoon. Roseanne Crawford, on behalf of the Coalition to Preserve Mission Canyon. We have over 100 people that are against this annexation, and as you know, some time ago, we presented the petition against that to you. Today, I would like to put a face to some of the individuals directly around the immediate boundary of the Woodland Acres. Rachel Ahrens at 2735 Los Encinas West last year was affected directly when the museum surveyed the Woodland Acres in preparation for the LAFCO annexation application. They found at that time her entryway had been built many years ago on part of the museum property. Most likely, last surveyed many years ago incorrectly. They allowed her to pay for the land just enough so that she could get into her driveway. Another neighbor who has an easement along the back of the Woodland Acres is concerned about losing their easement to access his property off Los Encinas West if the annexation is allowed. Mrs. Aaron's elderly neighbor next door, whose property is half in the city and half in the county, pays taxes to both city and county, as she always has. This will not change. There is currently no orderly boundary, nor would there be an orderly boundary with annexation. The annexation would result in encroachment of more land under city jurisdiction, pushing into county. The tax exchange as part of this process should not be much, as this land is mostly undeveloped woodland at this time in this historic area. At this very time, across town, at the Historic Landmarks meeting, required for changes to the museum's properties, the plan to submit compliance requirements for the demo remodel of the western residence, which is located in the Woodland Acres, is being submitted this moment right now. So the tax numbers could change based, again, on this development, and obviously greatly change with future development down the road or if the land is sold. Thank you for your time.
Okay, I think you're requesting direction for placing this on the July agenda? Okay.
I was thinking that we would want to put it off until we meet again in Santa Barbara. And that was the direction I was headed, rather than schedule it for Santa Maria, where people would have a hard time getting to the meeting.
Just schedule it then. Okay, Commissioner and staff reports, and I'm going to turn this over to the Vice Chair for a minute.
Okay, any commissioners have reports? I see none. How about staff report?
Mr. Chairman, the only information I wanted to share with you is I had a meeting with the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Drinking Water District Offices. A gentleman, Jeff Densmore from Carpinteria, that is handling San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. And there was a bill that was signed by Governor Brown, which was SB 88, that allows the State Water Resources Control Board to consolidate water purveyors if there's a situation where there is a health and safety issue and a neighboring jurisdiction is able to provide water service to to a development, usually a disadvantaged, unincorporated community right adjacent to the area. And one of the things that they did not take into account is that there is a process in place throughout the state called LAFCO, and it requires annexations to be processed through LAFCOs. And so they were trying to find out how that would work and how the LAFCO process works. Kind of after the fact, SB 88 was signed, and the intent was good, but it eliminated the LAFCO involvement. So now they're meeting in these 20 or so sub-agencies around the state with LAFCO executive officers to see how we do it and what's the best way to proceed with this. I think they've only done one or two in the state since the bill was signed a year or so ago. So I thought you'd find this interesting, and we'll continue to work with the State Water Resources Control Board. I met with San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara LAFCOs met with him separately, or not separately, but together, so we wouldn't have to have two separate meetings about a month ago.
Thank you. Okay, if there's any commissioner announcements? Okay, that meeting's adjourned.